And it will take just a minute for that to come up. Okay, so we are live. I just want to go through and have everybody introduce themselves, all the team members. Students, I'm going to have you individually introduce yourself for each of your roles. So you don't need to do all of your roles when you are first introducing yourself. This will help the scorers to get your name and your character correct on the score sheet, since everything's being done electronically this year and we don't have rosters to pass out. So as I call out the role, please introduce yourself with your full name, your team code, and then your character name if you're a witness. So first of all, could I have the attorney doing the prosecution opening, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Paige Weidman on Team Super Mario.
Thank you. And can I have the attorney doing the opening for the defense?
Hello, my name is Rachel Yett. I'm on Team Sonic, and I will be doing the defense opening.
Thank you. And counsel number 1 for the prosecution, please introduce yourself.
I'm Paige Weidman, and I will be directing Alex Cifuentes.
Thank you. And counsel number 1 for the defense, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Abby Miller, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Taylor Perkins on behalf of Team Sonic.
Counsel number 2 for the prosecution.
Hello, my name is Jack Nauman. I will be performing the direct examination of Kyle Kuzak for Team Super Mario.
And counsel number 2 for defense.
My name is Rachel Yett. I'm on Team Sonic, and I will be performing the direct examination of Blake Van Owen.
Thank you. Counsel number 3 for the prosecution.
Hello, my name is Sabin Yanez. I will be doing the direct examination for Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you. Counsel number 3 for the defense.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Laura Thompson. I'm part of the Sonic team, and I will be performing the direct examination of Avery Becker.
Thank you. Could I please have the witnesses now? The first witness for the prosecution.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Jordan Markowitz, or my name is Sophia Schumann, and I will be portraying Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you. And witness number 1 for defense.
Hello, Your Honor. I'm Reham Abdunabi, and I'm the Sonic team, and I will be playing the role of Taylor Perkins.
Thank you. Witness number 2 for the prosecution.
Hi, I'm Esteban Reich, and I'll be portraying Kyle Kuzak for the prosecution.
Thank you. Witness number 2 for the defense.
I'm on Team Sonic. My name is Chase Elkins, and I'm Professor Blake Van Owen.
Thank you. Witness number 3 for the prosecution.
Hello, my name is Daniel Yanez, and I'm Alex Cifuentes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about this. Before we move on to the rest, there seems to have been a slight mistake in our witness order. Our first witness is Alex Cifuentes, played by Daniel Yanez. And our last witness is Detective Jordan Markowitz, played by Sophia Schumann.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, one more correction. Markowitz will be second after Alex Cifuentes. Kyle Kuzak will go last.
Okay. Did everybody get that? Okay. And the third witness for the defense.
Understood.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm sorry. My name is Emma Klausner, and I will play the role of Avery Becker.
Thank you. And who will handle the closing on behalf of the prosecution?
I will, Your Honor. My name is Saban Yanez, and I will be delivering the closing argument for the prosecution.
Thank you. And who will be handling the closing on behalf of the defense?
I will. My name is Abby Miller, and I will be performing the closing argument on behalf of Team Sonic.
Thank you. Now we'll have the timekeepers introduce themselves. Timekeeper for the prosecution.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Hannah Harling, and I am the prosecution's timekeeper.
Thank you. And timekeeper for the defense.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Raven Chamberlain, and I will be the timekeeper for the defense.
Thank you. Great. Let me know if I missed anybody. I know you've heard this before, but just as a reminder, only the presenting attorneys for the prosecution and the defense and the witness who's being examined, plus the judge, should have their camera and their microphone on during the trial. Everyone else should keep their camera off and be muted. Timekeepers, you may come on as necessary to alert your team to the amount of time left at the appropriate times. If you're not a performing attorney, witness, or timekeeper for the two teams that are performing here, you must exit now, or a scorer or a judge. If you're a parent or a spectator or a coach or on a team not performing in this round, you need to exit and watch the trial from the live stream if you're allowed to do so. Failure to do this could cause your team to be sanctioned. If there are no other questions or comments, then I will turn the courtroom over to our presiding judge, the Honorable Tim Kearns. Mock trial is now in session. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We are prepared to proceed to trial today. Is Super Mario ready to proceed?
Your Honor, we do have some pretrial matters, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yes, the people asked that at the end of each witness, the timekeepers for both teams announce how much time is remaining.
Any objection from Sonic?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
So court will grant that request.
We also ask that the witnesses be allowed to reference the exhibit packets that they have with them to speed up the flow of this trial.
Any objection?
No objection, just as long as it's the exhibits rather than the affidavits.
Yes,
of course.
Thank you.
We ask that any time that is taken up viewing video evidence, video exhibits, not be counted against the time of the side that is offering the case.
Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
Very well. Court will grant that request.
And finally, we ask that any time left remaining at the end of the closing argument for the prosecution be reserved for rebuttal.
Certainly. Court will grant that request.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything else then on behalf of Sonic?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense has a few pretrial matters. We just want to make sure that you guys have a copy of stipulated facts published to yourself and the jury.
I do, and I believe the scorers do as well. Yes.
And we want to make sure that it's okay to perform redirects.
Yes, certainly.
We would also like to inquire about your preference on screen sharing exhibits.
And you're welcome to do so.
Is there a certain manner you would like us to do that?
Honestly, I'm not familiar enough with Zoom to know exactly how it works, but you can just show them on the screen and then take them down so the witness can then be seen by the viewers.
Okay. And lastly, we just wanted to let you know that we're all competing from the same school. So during changes between witnesses and lawyers, we'll have to sanitize the areas, so there might be a slight delay.
That's certainly fine and understandable, and we should not count that time against either side.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then with that, if we could have the prosecution's opening statement, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Am I ready to begin?
You are, thank you.
No accountability. This is a case based entirely on accountability, or the lack thereof. In her life, few people have tried to hold Miss Avery Becker accountable for her actions, and none have succeeded until now. Among those who tried to hold her accountable was Mr. Mackenzie Brackman. Mr. Brackman was a well-known lawyer before he was murdered in his home on March 6th of 2020. Along with being a lawyer, Mr. Brackman coached the Colorado High School's mock trial team, leading them to victory in the regional tournament of 2020. Mr. Brackman gained the respect of his students and colleagues alike for good reason, but he did not have the respect of everybody. Ms. Avery Becker was a student of Mr. Brackman's for 4 years and was constantly at odds with her coach. She refused to prepare her cases for mock trial competitions, convinced that she could win based on her charm and quick wit alone. Mr. Brackman tried to hold her accountable. He tried telling her that she wouldn't be able to easily slide through life without preparation and hard work. But Miss Becker deflected that accountability. She repeatedly ignored Mr. Brackman's advice, continuously neglected her responsibilities, and on multiple occasions could not even be bothered to go to practice. Because of this, Ms. Becker and Mr. Brackman argued day after day and made no attempts to hide their agitation from the rest of the team. After she neglected her responsibilities for the last time, Mr. Brackman and Ms. Becker began to argue again. This argument escalated further than any prior argument had, and it ended with Mr. Brackman kicking Ms. Becker off the team. Ms. Becker stormed out of class, and she took a permanent marker to the hood of Mr. Brackman's white vintage Porsche, scrawling the phrase "Worst Attorney Award" on the hood for everyone to see. Mr. Brackman refused to let her back on the team. He held her accountable, but Avery Becker would have none of it. She went to Mr. Brackman's house, planning to vandalize that as well. And in doing so, Mr. Brackman came home. Next thing you know, Mr. Mackenzie Brackman is lying face down in a pool of his own blood. Today, you will hear from Alex Cifuentes, a former teammate of Avery Becker's, and he will recount the agitation between his former teammate and coach, as well as provide Ms. Becker's plans to vandalize Mr. Brackman's home. Then you will hear from Kyle Kuzak, who is an certified crime scene reconstruction investigator, and she will provide her analysis of the crime, as well as the process of coming to her conclusions. And finally, you will hear from Detective Jordan Markowitz, who is a detective, a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department. And she will explain the exact path that Avery Becker took in order to get to Mr. Brackman's home, as well as the chain of events leading up to the crime. As the jury, it is your responsibility to weigh the evidence and testimony that you will be presented with today. And you will find, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Avery Becker unlawfully entered the dwelling of Mr. Brackman and committed second-degree burglary. In committing second-degree burglary, Avery Becker murdered Mr. Brackman, effectively committing murder in the first degree. Avery Becker cannot be let off the hook again. She has been allowed to deflect accountability again and again. And the defense is going to try to do that today. They're going to try to allow her to be let off the hook again. And you cannot let this happen. So please, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, hold Avery Becker accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Opening statements from the defense, please.
The less I see, the more I know. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here today because of the loss of Mr. Mackenzie Brackman, a local defense attorney and the Colorado High School mock trial team coach. Now, in last March, Mr. Brackman's mock trial team had just taken the first place at their regional competition and was preparing to go to state when Mr. Brackman was murdered inside of his own home. Now you're here because the prosecution believes that Avery Becker, a good student, a hard worker, a committed mock trial participant, a daughter, a friend, a good person. The prosecution believes that Avery Becker did this, but we will show you that she didn't. Now, Avery Becker is going to testify for you today, and Avery Becker has no duty to do that. She has nothing to prove to you, and she is innocent. But, ladies and gentlemen, she will testify and tell you about although her and Mr. Brackman's relationship was not the best, and they had their disagreements and their arguments, that she could never hurt him. Now, you'll also hear from Taylor Perkins, and Taylor Perkins is Avery Becker's best friend. But Taylor will verify that she was with Avery Becker almost the entire day of March 6th, and there is no possible way Avery could have committed this crime. The less I see, the more I know that Avery has a simple alibi. You'll also hear from Professor Blake Van Owen, a private investigator. And Professor Van Owen will show us the holes in the prosecution's case and show us that there is reasonable doubt. The less I see, the more I know the prosecution won't present us with their full case today. Now, the defense also has 3 witnesses. Or, I'm sorry, the prosecution also has 3 witnesses. They'll call Kyle Kuzak, a crime scene reconstruction investigator with the same training as our very own Professor Blake Van Owen. And Kyle Kuzak won't present you with any hard evidence linking Avery Becker to the scene. The less I see, the more I know that she just wasn't there. Detective Jordan Markowitz is the head detective on this case. Detective Jordan Markowitz will fail to show us that Avery Becker was present at the home of Mackenzie Brackman. They'll talk about videos of the intruder entering the home of Mr. Mackenzie Brackman, but the less I see of Avery Becker on those videos, the more I know she wasn't there. Now, the prosecution will tell you how they only investigated thoroughly with 1 suspect. The less suspects I see, the more I know about their job on this case. The less work I see from the police in general, the more I know they didn't utilize all of their materials and resources to conduct a thorough investigation of this case. You'll also hear from Alex Cifuentes, a high school student much like Avery Becker. Alex was on the team with Avery Becker, and ladies and gentlemen, as they testify today, I ask you to look for any bias that you might see in their testimony. Alex Cifuentes will testify that he saw Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman have their petty arguments about mock trial, but the less I see, the more I know that Alex won't present you with accurate details in this case. Now today, the prosecution has the burden of proof. They must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that it is Avery Becker who committed this crime. And today you will see the prosecution not meet their burden of proof. You will see that Avery isn't guilty. You will see the holes in the prosecution's case, and you will know that Avery is not guilty. The less I see, the more I know the prosecution's witnesses will fail to prove Avery guilty. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we go into this case, I ask you to ask yourselves, is there more I should be seeing from the prosecution? Is this all there is to see? Is this all there is to know? Do I know for a fact that Avery Becker is guilty? Now, ladies and gentlemen, the defense doesn't have a burden of proof, but we will show you that the prosecution wants you to see less and make you feel like you then know more. Today, the defense will present you with our unbiased facts of this case, and we will present you with our full case. You will know for a fact Avery is not guilty. The defense will show you suspects with real-life motive more than a petty mock trial disagreement. And we will show you the unrealisticness of our client committing this crime. The less of Avery Becker I see in the prosecution's case, the more I know. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today, Avery Becker, a good, smart high school student, will be convicted of felony murder if you walk blindly into this case. So today, I ask you to look for all of the holes in the prosecution's case, all of the bias, and I ask you to see that Avery Becker is not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Prosecution may call its first witness, please.
The people call Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cifuentes.
Hello.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
All right. Do you and Avery Becker know each other?
Yes, Avery and I are classmates at Colorado High School.
All right. Could you describe your relationship with Avery Becker?
Yeah, we are best friends, and we're really good friends.
All right. And what was your relationship with Mackenzie Brackman?
Mackenzie Bracken was the coach of our mock trial team that Avery and I were on.
During your time in mock trial, were you able to observe the relationship between Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman?
Yes, I had 3 years of that.
Could you describe their relationship?
Yeah, they hated each other. It was brutal to watch them come into mock trial every week and yell at each other for hours on hours.
And did they argue at practice?
Yeah, all the time.
What did they argue about?
It was mostly on Avery's commitment and just effort put into mock trial in general. Coach Brackman, as per most of the team, we kind of all agreed that Avery would show up, not do the work, and yet get all the awards in mock trial. That happens sometimes, but with Avery, it was constant.
And then were you personally frustrated with Miss Becker?
Yeah. Yes, I was.
Did the arguments between Mr. Brackman and Ms. Becker ever escalate beyond just arguing?
Yeah, it definitely escalated a few times. One time it got to a point where Avery was drawing all over Coach's car.
And then after that, did Mr. Brackman let Avery Becker stay on the team?
No, once Coach saw his Porsche with just the words on the hood, he instantly kicked Avery from the team.
Did Miss Becker contact you after being kicked off the team?
Yes, she reached out to me asking, "Hey, can you speak for me, speak on my behalf to Coach Brackman, asking if you can let me back on the team."
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Any response, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. The person who said this, my mistake. Would you mind elaborating on what exactly was hearsay?
Sorry, may I respond?
You may.
The statements that he was saying about what my client said, we have no proof that my client actually said that. And it's still an out-of-court statement being brought in for the truth of the matter asserted. And again, we don't know if it was my client saying that.
Your Honor, may I respond? This is not hearsay because it is a statement from the defendant, which is an exception to the hearsay rule.
Thank you. And the court will overrule the objection. You may continue.
You said the defendant texted you. What did she send?
It was something on the lines of, "Hey, can you let me back? Can Coach let me back on the team?" And I responded the way Coach responded to me. It was definitely a stern no. And then Avery responded saying, "Well, if he doesn't like what I did to his car, he's going to enjoy what I'm going to do to his house."
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to direct both your attention as well as opposing counsel's attention to what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14 in your exhibit packet. Mr. Cifuentes, do you have your exhibit packet in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Please refer to what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14. Could you describe the contents of this photo?
This photo is there's screenshots of the text messages that I was just talking about between Avery and I.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the screenshots between you and Miss Avery Becker?
Let me look. Yes, they are.
And just to clarify, Mr. Cifuentes, did you manipulate these screenshots in any way, shape, or form?
No, of course not.
Your Honor, I move to enter what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 14 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I do object to hearsay because there is no proof that my client sent these text messages. We have seen no evidence. My client has not admitted to sending these text messages. And again, it's an out-of-court statement, as well as Mr. Cifuentes' statements are in there as well, which is another out-of-court statement.
Thank you. Any response?
Yes. First of all, this is not hearsay, again, because it is a statement from the defendant, which is an exception to hearsay.
All right, the court will note that there's sufficient authenticity regarding the communication via text between the parties and overrule the objection. You may continue. Thank you.
Thank you. I ask for permission to share my screen to show these exhibits. Let me. Mr. Cifuentes, would you mind reading the last message Ms. Becker sent you?
Yes. Oh, is this on the first page or the second page?
First page, my bad.
Okay. It says, I'm going to wait until he's at work, then break in and trash it.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'd like to move on to your relationship with the defendant. Mr. Cifuentes, were you and Avery Becker rivals?
No, Avery and I were best friends.
And are you testifying today in order to get Ms. Becker in trouble?
No, absolutely not. In my eyes, the truth needs to come out no matter who it hurts. And unfortunately, in this case, it hurts Avery.
One last thing. What roles did Ms. Becker specifically play in mock trial?
Well, it depends on the year, but Avery played witnesses, lawyers, and openers and closers. But she was good across the board, especially at witnesses and getting the jury to just think exactly what she was saying.
And was she believable as a witness?
Oh, yes, very believable.
Thank you, Mr. Cifuentes. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
We're going to start off by talking a little bit about your friendship with with Avery Becker. You claim that you guys are best friends.
Yes, we are.
Yet you guys never hung out outside of practice.
Well, sometimes schedules are very packed, as mine definitely was. But yeah, we would get together during mock trial, yeah.
But not outside of practice.
Yeah.
Yet you still consider yourself best friends.
Yeah, friendship doesn't end at mock trial and going out of there.
We're going to talk a little bit more about Avery's skills that you talked about. You believe Avery's very talented at what they do in the mock trial world.
Yeah.
And you were jealous that they always did so well.
I was jealous that they did so well without minimal work and how they would get the awards for it. Yeah.
Because you put in so much work and effort, didn't you?
Yeah, so did the team, so did coach.
And you wouldn't get recognized for all the work that you put in.
Yeah.
And that made you frustrated.
It did, as it made everyone on the team.
We're going to talk a little bit about the screenshots that you sent the detective. You never gave the detective your phone, did you?
No, I did not.
He never had your phone in his hands.
Objection
No.
asked and answered.
Your response, counsel.
I was just making a clarification question, Your Honor.
Very well. Court will overrule the objection. Let me continue.
You never gave the detective the phone because he never had it in his hands.
Nope.
And so you sent him screenshots.
Yeah, that's all I really could do.
And there's no way of knowing if these screenshots are authentic.
Well, there is a way of knowing. I'm saying it right now that those are the texts from Avery between me and Avery.
But besides your word, there's no way of knowing
Objection.
if these screenshots.
Out of the witness's knowledge.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. I was simply asking a clarification question if they knew if there was any way of knowing that what they were sending could be authentic or not, or the lack of authentication.
And the court will grant leeway on cross and overrule the objection. You may continue.
So there's no way of knowing, besides your word, that these screenshots are authentic.
Yeah.
And you're aware that there's ways of manipulating text messages?
Yeah, but I'm not lying about this. This is what happened.
But again, you're aware that there's ways to manipulate text messages.
Yeah, but yeah.
And you only sent them the screenshots and they never had the phone.
Yeah, I couldn't. The phone was
So-
basically self-destructing.
So you're asking the jury to take you at your word.
Well, I'm not a liar.
The witness is not asking the jury anything. The witness is simply presenting the evidence.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
There was no objection made to the question that I asked.
I agree.
So
We'll get
if there's
clarification.
an objection, I can respond.
And counsel, is there an objection on this question?
Yes, I believe that it is not the correct time to be asking the witness to persuade the jury of anything, because the witness is simply testifying to the truth.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Please.
Do you have a rule number that you can cite for the objection?
May I respond, Your Honor?
Please.
I do not, but in a court, it is not the witness's responsibility to persuade the jury of anything. It is simply the witness's duty to convey the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Please.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If there's no objection, I don't exactly know how to respond. I'm merely asking a question where Mr. Cifuentes can answer yes or no.
I agree. I'll allow you to continue and we'll just proceed. Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat my question?
Sure.
So you're asking the jury to believe you at your word.
Yeah, but it's very easy to do that because I'm not lying.
But again, they'll have to believe your statement just because you're telling them that these screenshots aren't faulty.
They're not.
But again, it's only your word saying that they're not.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Thank you. Any response?
The witness is not giving an answer. They're rather dancing around it, and I'm asking for a yes or a no.
Your Honor, may I respond?
You may.
I'm not referring to the question you asked immediately prior to this, the question that I objected to, but my witness has testified that the only way the jury is going to know the validity of these screenshots is because of his word earlier in the cross-examination.
Your Honor, may I
Certainly. You're welcome to.
Which, if I may ask co-counsel, what question they're talking about in particular? The question that I asked.
I do not
Which
remember
question?
the exact question, but earlier I do remember making an objection to it, and you did ask. The only way the jury is able to be sure of these messages' validity is from your word.
So I will find that it's been asked and answered, and we'll proceed on to the next question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're going to talk a little bit more about your and Avery's friendship. The only time you saw each other outside of practice was the fry shack.
Yeah, that's the main spot us mock trial kids would go for a good bite to eat.
And you and Avery wouldn't hang out after.
Yeah, not after practice, not really.
And you only saw each other at practice.
And at school, yeah.
So besides school and practice, you never saw Avery.
Objection, asked and answered.
Your response?
I was asking a clarification question on besides, I've never asked the besides school and mock trial. So again, I was just making a clarification.
Thank you. I'll overrule the objection. You can answer that.
So besides school and mock trial, you never saw Avery.
Could you repeat the question?
Besides seeing Avery at school and mock trial, you never hung out outside of those two events.
Yeah.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll now have the prosecution's second witness, please. And the people may call their second witness.
The people call Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand. All right. Good afternoon, Detective Markowitz.
Hello.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
Detective Markowitz, where do you work?
I work for the Denver Police Department.
What specifically do you do at the Denver Police Department?
I am a detective and I have been for about 7 years.
As a part of your career, have you received any specialized training?
I have. I am certified in both cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
Do you have any certifications when it comes to cell phones?
Yes, I am certified from the American Academy of Law Enforcement in both cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
And what skills did the training give you?
I learned how to obtain records for calls and texts, as well as download any information off of a phone using the Celebrite system, and as well use this in a court case.
Now, how often do you use your training?
I use it very often. I have used it in over 50 cases in Colorado.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter Detective Jordan Markowitz as an expert in crime scene investigation, cell phone data recovery, and cell phone forensic data analysis.
Any objection?
Yes, one short objection to the crime scene expertise entrance. I do not believe that opposing counsel has laid enough foundation to show us that aside from this forensic data recovery certification, that Detective Markowitz has enough experience and or training in the field of working with crime scenes to be entered as an expert. So I just asked opposing counsel to lay more foundation.
Any response?
Your Honor, may I respond?
Please.
Yes. Detective Markowitz has testified that she has over 7 years of experience being a detective, investigating crime scenes, as well as the fact that she has been already admitted in 50 or more cases as an expert witness in the proffered fields.
Thank you. And the court will overrule the objection, knowing the standard for 702, and the testimony goes to the weight, not admissibility of her expertise, and the court will authorize her as an expert. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, how did you come to be involved in this current case?
I was assigned to this case on March 6th of 2020, so the day of the crime.
Generally, what kind of cases do you investigate?
Mostly homicides like this one.
Did you investigate this crime scene personally?
I did.
Where was the crime scene?
It was in Denver at 444 South Flower Street.
On what day did the murder take place?
March 6th of 2020.
Did you investigate on March 6th or on a later date?
I investigated on the day of the crime, so March 6th.
What time did you arrive at the scene?
I arrived at about 2:20 in the afternoon, so probably about an hour after the crime.
Was anyone there when you got there?
Yes, there was multiple officers already there who had secured the crime scene for me.
How long did it take to identify the
Not very long. I had already known him previously, so as soon as I got an ID on the victim, I knew who he was.
And who was the victim to you?
Mr. Brackman, he was a lawyer in Colorado.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like you to walk me through the way you investigated the crime scene. I'd like to start from the very beginning. When you got into the residence, what did you notice first?
Well, first, when I got onto the premises, I noticed that the front door was open and that Mr. Brackman was laying face down in the front hallway with a stab wound in his left shoulder.
Did you ever find out who owned the house?
Yes, Mr. Brackman did.
And how did you find that out?
Just through a part of my investigation, I had to.
Okay. Did the house have any security devices?
Yes, it had 3 different Ring doorbell cameras.
And where were the doorbells and cameras located?
There was one at the front door that you could see when you walked up to the premises, and well as one in the back side of the house facing the south gate, which led to the back door where there was another camera facing the back door.
Now, how did you continue your investigation of the crime scene?
Well, I walked around to the back where there was the back door, and I entered, and there was a kitchen with a broken plate as well as a knife block and an open knife drawer.
Would you be able to recognize a picture of that scene if it was shown to you?
Yes, I would be able to.
Would you please turn to Exhibit 9?
Yes.
Could you please identify Exhibit 9?
Yes, this is the dining area near the kitchen where there's the broken plate in the forefront of the photo.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter what has been previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 9.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court receives an evidence, People's Exhibit 9.
Okay, thank you. Did you notice anything else in the kitchen or the dining room area?
Yes, there were a few splatters around the kitchen area as well as a few splatters leading into the hallway where Mr. Brackman was laying.
Now, you said there were splatters in the kitchen. Did your team take photographs of these pictures? Or
Yes, we did, but they were unable to be recovered, and so we never were able to use them.
Okay. Now, you said previously that there was blood splatter in the entryway. Did your team take photographs of those?
We also took photos of those, but once again, they were corrupted.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to return to the Ring doorbell footage. How did you obtain the videos?
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation.
Thank you. Any response?
Your Honor, the witness has already testified to the fact that there were Ring doorbell and Ring camera security devices installed around the house. So this is perfectly within Detective Markowitz's, yeah.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
While Detective Markowitz has in fact testified to what you explained, no foundation has been laid for the jury in terms of what a Ring video or what a Ring camera is. And so I would just ask that opposing counsel lay a little bit more foundation for the sake of the jury before continuing in their questioning.
Counsel?
I stand by my defense.
Okay. And leave it up to counsel to clarify if they wish what the Ring is. I think most people have some information, but I'll overrule the objection. Allowed to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I'll ask this question again. How did you obtain the videos?
I was able to use Mr. Brackman's account. I was able to enter it and download the Ring video footage.
Okay. Did you search the rest of your house in your investigation?
I did, but I didn't find anything else out of the ordinary.
Okay, thank you. Now I'd like to return to the Ring video footage. Would you be able to identify those exhibits if they were shown to you?
Yes, of course.
I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 10. Could you please describe what's going on in Exhibit 10?
This is the link to the video of the intruder on March 6th walking up to Mr. Brackman's front door.
Objection, Your Honor. Facts not in evidence.
Thank you. Any response?
Your Honor, the witness is testifying as to the evidence, so it isn't evidence.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, please.
Well, Detective Markowitz is well within her right to explain that this was one of the Ring videos she obtained. Because this video is not yet in evidence, she cannot discuss the specific contents of this video, such as the intruder that she mentioned attempting to access the house.
Any reply to that, counsel?
Witnesses are absolutely allowed to testify to exhibits that are not entered into evidence.
Well, I think it comes down to really a question of authenticity regarding whether the video she's describing is in fact sufficiently reliable. So I will sustain the objection and allow you to address the status of the ring video.
Okay.
Thank you.
Detective Markowitz, how again did you obtain these ring video doorbell or these ring videos?
I was able to download them off of Mr. Brackman's personal account, so they were definitely from the home that day. And I have had them in my custody since. They are now entered as, now are presented as exhibits for this court.
And what exactly are those exhibits in these cases, those doorbell evidences?
They're just the different videos from March 6th. 2 of them are from the front door, and then 1 is from the side gate, and 1 is from the back door.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter exhibits 10 through 13 into evidence.
Thank you. Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Court receives into evidence then People's exhibits 10 through 13 inclusive.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
At this time, I will share screen. And Detective Markowitz, could you please identify exhibit 10?
So this is the first video that I received on March 6th of 2020. It is the intruder walking up to the front door. He attempts to enter, but is unable to. So he turns around and walks towards the side gate where the next video will start.
Okay. Could you please identify this exhibit?
Yes, so this is the next video a few seconds later of the intruder opening the side gate, entering and walking past the gate and to the back door.
Could you please identify exhibit 12?
Yes, so this is the video of the back door. The intruder enters the home and closes the door behind him.
And then finally, could you identify exhibit 13?
And then this is finally the last one that is a few minutes later, and the intruder exits out of the front door and runs towards the street away.
Okay, thank you. Now, I'd like to talk about how you followed up on leads in this case. What did you start with?
Well, I first reached out to Colorado High School, where Mr. Brackman was a mock trial coach, and I received 1 lead, Alex Cifuentes.
Okay, now, did you follow up with Alex Cifuentes?
Yes, I did. I scheduled an interview with him.
And did that lead to anything?
It did. He told me about a student named Avery Becker, and I received screenshots between Alex Cifuentes and Avery Becker.
Did you follow up with Avery Becker?
I did, but I was unable to actually talk to Avery Becker.
Did your investigation into Avery Becker stop there?
No, I did receive call detail records, which is part of my expertise, and for Avery Becker's phone.
Now, I'd like you to go into a little bit more detail about call detail records. What exactly are call detail records?
They are the records that record whether a phone is either receiving a text message or sending out a text message, and it records where and when this phone made this connection to a specific tower.
Okay, and did Avery Becker's phone make any connections near Mr. Brackman's house on March 6th?
Yes, it did, and I created a diagram to prove that.
Would you be able to identify a copy of that exhibit if it was shown to you?
Yes, I would.
Let the record reflect that, Your Honor, at this time, the people moved to enter exhibit 15 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection right now, but I would just ask that opposing counsel screen share this exhibit, please.
Okay, let me pull that up.
While you're doing that, the court will receive into evidence then People's Exhibit 15.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Detective Markowitz, what exactly is exhibit 15?
I can look at it. Exhibit 15 is the diagram that I put together for this case, just to more accurately show what the call detail records proved.
Now, I see these cones around on exhibit 15. What do those cones, red cones, identify?
I'm so sorry. Do you have the exhibit shared?
No, I do not, but I have it in 2 seconds. Okay, Detective Markowitz, what are these red cones that you see here?
So these are all 120 degrees areas of where the tower can cover and have specific phones connect to it in designated areas. Yeah.
Now, did Avery Becker's phone connect to any of these towers?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I will go through this exhibit. The first connection that it made was to the top tower labeled 1227, and it connected at 12:47 p.m. on March 6th of 2020. From there, it connected to the middle tower labeled 1191 at 12:55, which means that the phone went from the first tower to the second tower within that time. As well, then the phone went to the middle tower down to the bottom left tower in the same amount of time, where it was marked at 1:05 to be in the bottom left labeled 1197.
Now I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 16. What is Exhibit 16?
Exhibit 16 is the same diagram. I used my expertise to put in the path that is most likely that Avery Becker took on that day.
Your Honor, at this time, the people move to enter what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 15 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, but I just again ask for opposing counsel to continue to screen share as they show Exhibit 16, please.
Thank you. And to clarify, you've requested 15 and 16, or was it just 15?
15 and 16 to be entered into evidence.
Any objection, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court will receive into evidence Peoples 15 and 16.
Detective Markowitz, could you please identify what's in Exhibit 16?
Yeah, so like I said, this is just the path that I believe is the most likely that Avery Becker's phone took on the day of March 6th.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of foundation. If you would like me to explain my objection further, I'm happy to.
Please.
I'm objecting on the grounds of lack of foundation because though the foundation has been laid that Miss Becker's phone was in these locations, Detective Markowitz is testifying that Avery, due to this data, was in these locations, but we have no foundation laid at this point that Miss Becker was in possession of her phone or that she was at all in the same location of her phone on these maps or on March 6, 2020.
You any response?
Your Honor, the witness is testifying as to the ultimate issue of the case.
And without additional foundation, the court will sustain the objection, allow her to testify as to where the phone was located without.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, were you aware if Avery Becker had their phone on them on March 6th?
I was told that it was supposedly lost, but I know that the phone was traveling from the top tower down to the bottom tower on that day.
Detective Markowitz, what is your expert opinion on this case?
I believe, based on all of the evidence that I gathered, that Avery Becker entered Mr. Brackman's home on March 6th of 2020, and there was a fight, and what resulted was Mr. Brackman being stabbed in the left shoulder and bleeding out to death.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross-examination, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Markowitz. So you were called to Mr. Brackman's home on March 6, 2020, yes?
I was.
And you were called because a passing motorist had called 911, yes?
Yes.
And this passing motorist had seen a body pass out on the porch of Mr. Brackman's residence, yes?
Correct.
Okay. And when you arrived at the scene, the body was not found on the porch.
No, it was not. It was inside the house.
Okay. Just to clarify, the body was found inside the house?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I will now direct your attention to Exhibits 1 and 4. As I ask co-counsel to screen share these exhibits, please. Detective, do you have personal copies of Exhibits 1 and 4 handy?
I do. So.
Okay. Lovely. Then do you recognize these exhibits?
I do. These are pictures that I took.
Okay. And as you said, they appear to be photos that you took at the crime scene?
Yes.
And do they appear to be the true and accurate representation of what was present at the crime scene?
Yes, they are.
Okay, Your Honor, I now ask to admit Exhibits 1 and 4 into evidence. If my co-counsel could also just scroll down to Exhibit 4 so we can make sure that opposing counsel has a chance to look at Exhibit 4, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Court will receive into evidence People's Exhibits 1 and 4.
Okay, I'll now ask co-counsel to scroll back up to Exhibit 1, please. And Detective, as we see Exhibit 1 displayed here, you can see Mr. Brackman's body face down on the floor of his residence, yes?
Yes.
And we can see his right arm in this photograph, yes?
Correct.
We can see that his right arm, and specifically his right hand, is resting above his head in this sort of fashion?
Yes.
Okay. I'll now ask co-counsel to scroll down to Exhibit number 4, please. And as we view this exhibit, we can see once again Mr. Brackman, yes?
Yes, you can.
Once again laying face down on the floor.
Correct.
We can again see his right arm in this photograph.
Correct.
And we can see that Mr. Brackman's arm in this photograph has been moved to be somewhere directly to the right of his body, yes?
Yes, it's probably partly because of the angle, but you are correct.
Okay, but we don't see Mr. Brackman's arm resting above his head as we did in Exhibit 1.
That is true.
Okay, co-counsel may now stop screen sharing if they would like. Okay, I'll now direct your attention to other photographs taken at the scene. So you've testified so far that you and your team took more photographs while at the scene, yes?
We did.
Okay, and some of these photographs were of blood splatter found on the walls near Mr. Brackman's body?
Correct.
As well as blood drops found near Mr. Brackman's body itself?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, but those photographs became corrupted in the hands of the police?
Yes.
Okay, and so we won't be able to see these photographs here today?
No, you won't be able to, and I'm sorry for that.
But just to clarify, there are photographs and evidence from this case, therefore, that the jury will not have a chance to see today?
I suppose so.
Okay, I can rephrase my question. Because these photographs are, in fact, missing from the prosecution's case today, we will not be able to see these photographs?
That is true.
Okay, I'll now direct your attention back to exhibit number 16, which has previously been entered into evidence. And I will once again ask co-counsel to screen share exhibit number 16. And just to clarify, as co-counsel is pulling up this exhibit, this is the diagram that you made representing the CDRs you tracked from Miss Becker's phone on March 6th, yes?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and in this exhibit, I will ask co-counsel to move the exhibit to be able to see that first range of the first cell tower. Thank you. Okay, so in this range, we can see that there is one cell phone tower near the top of this diagram. Yes, it's labeled 1227?
Exactly.
Okay, and within the range of this cell tower lies Miss Becker's home, yes?
Correct.
As well as a location marked Rollins' home?
Objection cumulative.
Response?
Your Honor, this is not cumulative. I am just asking the detective to explain to me the diagram, as the elements of this diagram are crucial to this case. I don't believe that just having the jury review this exhibit on their own would do it justice and get to the point that I'm trying to make. And so therefore, I'm asking Detective Markowitz to explain.
Your Honor, if I may.
Please.
Your Honor, the jury already has exhibits 16 in front of them. They can see all the things that are entailed within. They're normal people. So this testimony is absolutely cumulative.
Your Honor, if I may respond.
You're welcome to.
As I stated previously, you are correct in the fact that the jury does have a copy of Exhibit 16 in front of them, but I would like to be able to question Ms. Markowitz on this exhibit, as the point that I'm trying to make I don't think would necessarily be come to by the jury without the questioning that I would like to ask her.
Thank you. The court will overrule the objection, allow cross-examination to occur with respect to this exhibit. Thank you.
Okay, Detective, I will just repeat my question then. We can see another location marked Rollins' home within the range of this first cell tower?
You can.
Okay. And in your experience with cell towers, phones don't always connect to the cell tower that they are nearest to, do they?
No, not always.
Not always. Okay. And just to clarify, you don't have any confirmation that Miss Becker was in possession of her phone on March 6th?
I do not.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, briefly, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, did your team take pictures of the blood splatter at the crime scene?
Yes, we did.
Did you or your team store those pictures in the police department records?
No, we were not able to because of the corruption of them.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the court will allow people to call their third witness, please.
The prosecution calls Kyle Kuzak to the stand.
Thank you.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting. Kyle Kuzak, K-U-Z-A-K.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator employed by the City of Denver Police Department.
Are you a police officer?
No, I'm a civilian employee.
You mentioned you're certified. Can you tell the jury about your certification?
Yeah, I earned my certification through the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you worked as a crime scene reconstructor?
I've been dedicated to this for 19 years, 3 years with the City of Denver Police Department.
And in those 19 years, what has your work encompassed?
I've investigated home invasions, burglaries, I've investigated homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, and armed robberies.
Your Honor, at this time, I move the court to recognize Kyle Kuzak as an expert in crime scene reconstruction.
The objection.
No, Your Honor, but I would like to perform a quick voir dire of this witness.
You may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kuzak, you've testified to no education today, have you?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Sorry. No, that's correct.
And you've testified to no training outside of your experience or these conferences that you've gone to, have you?
No.
And you didn't get a degree in crime scene reconstruction, did you?
No, but I am certified.
And you're not a police officer, are you?
No, a civilian employee of the police department.
So you don't get any police training?
No.
You don't know police procedures or anything?
Not more than I've picked up while working alongside them.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I do not object to this witness being admitted as an expert, but I just would ask the jury to consider what we have just gone over as far as Ms. Kuzak's education and training as we go on.
Thank you. We'll designate the witness as an expert, and the people may continue.
Were you involved in the investigation that took place at 444 South Flower Street?
Yes.
Did anyone visit the scene before you?
Yeah, the initial investigation had already been begun, so I came in after it had been processed by other members of the crime lab.
Did you have any information before investigating the scene yourself?
By the time I got involved, there had been police reports done, and so I was able to review other officers' reports and look at photographs and review the ring videos that we previously talked about before beginning my own investigation.
Can you give the jury a summary of what you saw in these ring videos?
Yes, so it's a pretty clear progression. The first video shows a masked person of about the defendant's height and build trying to come through the front door, going through the back door in the second video, the back gate in the second video. The third video going through the back door and then exiting through the front door in the fourth video.
When you investigated the exterior of the house, what did you look for?
Any helpful evidence left by the perpetrators, such as DNA, fingerprints, hair follicles, those kind of things.
Was there any helpful evidence left behind?
No.
And did you also investigate the interior of the house?
Yes, of course.
What did you notice inside the residence?
Well, by the front door, of course, the first thing I noticed was the corpse in the pool of blood.
And are these pictures from the crime scene?
Yes.
Are there any conclusions you can draw from these pictures?
It shows where Mr. Brackman ultimately passed away, and after removing the knife that was stopping the bleeding.
Did you look at any other parts of the house?
Yes, of course.
What parts specifically?
I looked at the back door where I found scuff marks.
What prompted, based on your expertise, how did these scuff marks get there?
There was probably a struggle between the victim and the perpetrator.
Other than the scuff marks, did you find anything else relevant to the case?
Yes, I found a broken plate by the kitchen floor.
Was there anything else you noticed in the kitchen?
Yes, there was an open knife drawer and a knife block that presumably had one knife missing.
And was there a knife used in the crime?
Yes, the knife used to stab Mr. Brackman.
And did this bloody knife have anything to do with that knife block?
Yes, I'm under the impression that the knife was probably taken out of the knife block. They are different styles of knife, but it is not uncommon to replace a knife in a knife block with a different knife that fits.
Were there any other photos of the scene relevant to this case?
Yes, but those ones are not able to be showed here because they were corrupted.
What did these photos show?
They showed small drops of blood and cast off between the kitchen and the front door. And then there was cast off on the wall and the ceiling near the front door.
And what did this path of blood show you?
It showed me that the victim was probably stabbed near the kitchen, proceeded to the front door, where the victim pulled the knife out and dropped it there.
Did the file corruption harm your investigation in any way?
No, I had already reviewed the files before they were corrupted.
Based on your expertise, were you able to reconstruct the crime scene?
Yes.
And is there anyone who disagrees with you?
Yes, like Van Owen. He read our reports of the crime scene and then he reinterpreted the evidence that we discussed, didn't even conduct his own full investigation.
And in your expert opinion, what was your conclusion?
I think the victim knew the intruder was coming through a phone notification from a security system. He looked through the knife drawer for a weapon, chose to take from the knife block instead. The victim attacked the intruder. A struggle ensued, and the intruder got control of the knife, ultimately stabbing the victim.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Hello, investigator.
Hi.
You investigated the scene at 444 South Flower Street, yes?
Yes.
And you saw a body, right?
Yes.
And you saw a knife?
Yes.
And you're aware that this knife was a different brand than the other knives found in the knife block of Mackenzie Brackman?
Yes, I'm aware.
And did you ever look into any other places in the house that this knife could have came from?
There was an open knife drawer, but I think it was from the knife block.
And you are confident in your decision?
Reasonably so, yes.
Did you ever consider a possibility for the intruder to bring the knife with them?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, let's move on to talk about the bear hug stabbing. Are you confident that this is the way that Mr. Brackman was stabbed by the intruder reaching over two different shoulders and stabbing it in his back?
Yes.
Okay, and you're very confident in your analysis in this?
It makes the most sense, yes.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the ring videos. You reviewed these, yes?
Yes.
But you aren't able to tell the race of the person entering the home, are you?
No.
You aren't able to tell the gender, are you?
No.
You aren't able to tell the age?
Not necessarily.
No identifying marks or tattoos on them?
No.
Okay. All right, let's talk a little bit about the build of the intruder. You believe that this is the build of the defendant, right?
Yes.
You would consider this an average build though, wouldn't you?
For a high school student, sure.
And you would say multiple people have average builds,
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
you?
an average.
You never investigated Blair Rollins thoroughly, did you?
No.
You never looked into them or tried to contact them?
No.
You never conducted an interview?
That's not specifically my job, so no.
Okay. But you did never get in touch with them, did you?
No.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. I believe that concludes the people's evidence. Does the defense wish to call their first witness?
One moment, Your Honor. We do have to transition really quickly.
Okay, no problem. I'll be patient.
Your Honor, have you asked for defense to call a witness to the stand? I'm sorry, we were just in a period of transition there.
No, that's fine. I did. So if you're ready to call your first witness, you may do so.
Oh, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I cannot quite hear you.
Okay.
Um,
Got it better?
1 second, Your Honor, I apologize.
Is that working now?
Okay, this should be better. Just to clarify,
Sure.
were you asking for defense to call a witness?
I was. So if you're ready to call a witness, you may do so. Thank you.
I am so sorry. I'm not sure what's happening. Could you repeat that one more time?
Sure. You are certainly welcome to call your first witness. Thank you.
Wonderful. I heard that one. Okay. The defense would like to call Ms. Taylor Perkins to the stand.
Thank you. And you may proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Perkins.
Good morning.
Or I apologize. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Taylor Perkins, and Perkins is spelled Perkins.
And please explain to me your education.
Of course, I'm a freshman at CU Boulder this year, so like go Buffs and everything.
And where did you go to high school?
I went to high school actually last year at Colorado High School.
And did you graduate?
Oh, yeah, of course.
When did you graduate?
I graduated last year from Colorado High School, so 2020.
And while at Colorado High School, were you involved in any clubs or extracurriculars?
Yes, I was actually involved in mock trial.
And why did you choose to join mock trial?
I thought it'd be a fun thing to do after school with my best friend Avery Becker.
Besides Miss Becker, did you have a relationship with anyone else on the team?
Yes, I did. I knew Alex Cifuentes, but it wasn't really that significant of a relationship.
What did you think of Mr. Cifuentes?
I thought that he was a total kiss up to Mr. Brackman.
And speaking of, who was your coach on mock trial?
My coach was Mr. Mackenzie Brackman.
And what did you think of Mr. Brackman?
I thought that Mr. Brackman was like a mediocre coach and a mediocre lawyer too.
Did anyone ever share with you their opinions on Mr. Brackman?
Yeah, Avery wasn't too fond of Mr. Brackman.
Will you explain that to me?
Yeah, Avery and Mr. Brackman got into clashes constantly because Mr. Brackman always thought that Avery was unprepared and lazy.
And did Avery ever suffer any consequences for this supposed laziness or lack of preparation?
Yes, she did, actually, unfortunately.
Okay, I'll direct your attention to one of these times. Will you explain to me the first consequence that Miss Becker faced?
Yeah, so the first time Avery actually got demoted from B team, or demoted to B team from A team, sorry.
And why was that?
She was demoted because one time she came to practice like super unprepared. Avery was making things up on the fly, and it just didn't look good. So Mr. Brackman thought it would be the best thing to demote her down to B team for being unprepared. And this was a month before regionals.
Okay, and did you do anything to try and help Avery get back onto A team?
Yes, I did.
Will you explain to me that just a little bit?
Of course. So the less that I saw of Avery on A team, the more that I knew that I needed to step down for my friend because of how important mock trial was to her. So I stepped down from my spot for her to be on A team.
And did that work?
Yes, it did actually.
And so once Avery was back on A team, did the A team, compete at all?
Yeah, they did.
And where did they compete?
They competed at regionals.
And did Avery ever share with you how she did at regionals?
Yeah, she got Best Attorney Award and Best Closing Argument, which I was like super proud of her of. She did an amazing job.
And did Avery ever share with you what Mr. Brackman thought of these great awards?
Objection,
yeah,
outside
he
the scope of the witness's knowledge.
I'm sorry, counsel, one more time, please.
The opposing counsel asked the witness to testify as to knowledge that they have no way of knowing.
And any response?
Yes, Your Honor, I phrased my question as, did Avery ever share with you how Mr. Brackman reacted to these awards? I'm not asking Ms. Perkins to have any knowledge of Mr. Brackman's thoughts, but rather testify on behalf of what Ms. Becker shared with her in regards to Mr. Brackman's reaction.
Okay, to the extent the witness is not speculating, it's providing a statement made by, as I understand it, the Ms. Breckman in this case. I will overrule the objection, but I do not want her to testify about what they were thinking, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Perkins, I'll restate my question. Did Avery ever share with you how Mr. Brackman reacted to her winning these great awards?
Yes, she did.
Will you explain to me what she told you?
She told me that he told her that she didn't deserve the awards.
And did she explain anything more than that, including any reaction that she had to Mr. Brackman's reaction?
Yeah, she had a pretty rough reaction and she made a pretty bad decision, which got her kicked her off the team that night.
Will you explain that to me?
Yeah, so Mr. Brackman has his beloved Porsche 911 Carrera car that he loves. And while Avery was leaving practice that day, she was super mad and she accidentally grabbed a permanent marker, which she told me she thought it wasn't permanent. And she wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood of his Porsche, which was super crazy. And that got her kicked off the team.
Yeah, so you mentioned consequences previously. What was the consequence of this?
She got kicked off the team for good and she was never let back on at that point.
Okay. I'll now direct your attention to March 5th, 2020. On this day, did you spend any time with Miss Becker?
Of course, we were always together.
Will you explain to me what the two of you did when you were together on this day?
Yeah, on March 5th, me and Avery spent time at my house, and then we went to the Fry Shack.
And did you see anyone you knew while at Fry Shack?
Yeah, I did. I saw the whole mock trial team and Alex Cifuentes, unfortunately, too.
Did you spend any time with Mr. Cifuentes while at Fry Shack?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did, and it didn't really end up well.
Will you explain that to me?
Yeah, so Alex Cifuentes has like a passive aggressive way of being sincere, and everybody on the team was being super, super sincere to Avery. But Alex Cifuentes, on the other hand, as I told you, has a passive aggressive way, and this didn't come out great to Avery. And because of how much mock trial meant to her, she left the table really sad, and she went to the bathroom for a break.
You mentioned a table. Who all was sitting at that table?
Oh yeah, sorry. It was me, Taylor. Yeah, so me, it was Avery and Alex.
And just to clarify, you said that Miss Becker stormed off to the bathroom?
Yes, she did.
And when she came back from the bathroom, did the two of you stick around at Fry Shack or did you leave? What did you do?
Yeah, me and her left and we went to go to the mall. She totally needed to cool down after that situation.
And as the two of you left, do you remember seeing Miss Becker grab her phone at all?
No, I did not remember grabbing her phone and it was really weird because that thing was like her third kidney. It was never out of reach. And yeah, that night, yeah, I didn't see her grab it.
Okay, I'll direct your attention to the next morning now. And just to clarify, this is the morning of March 6, 2020. Did you see Avery at all that morning?
Yeah, we usually rode to school together on the day that we had first period off.
Did you ride to school together that morning?
Yeah, we rode together, but not to school.
Why didn't you go to school?
Well, we realized that Avery had lost her phone, and I said, let's go find it.
Okay, and will you explain to me all the places that you looked to try and find it?
Of course. So we looked at all the stores that we had went to at the mall, and then we also decided to go look at the Fry Shack, which we had previously been to the night before.
And beyond physically searching, did you use any other methods to try and find Miss Becker's phone?
Yes, I called and texted her phone constantly, and yeah, nobody was picking up because we thought somebody would pick up or we would hear it. And then we also could have tried with Find My iPhone, but I unfortunately had an Android, and that wouldn't have really worked there.
So were you ever able to find Miss Becker's phone on that day?
No, unfortunately not.
And have you been able to find Miss Becker's phone up to this day?
No, we haven't seen it since.
Okay, I'll direct your attention back to your coach, Mr. Brackman now. Beyond the kids on the mock trial team, do you have any knowledge of anyone at Colorado High School having a relationship with Mr. Brackman?
Yes, actually, there was this kid at school. His name was Blair Rollins.
Counsel?
I would just ask opposing counsel to repeat their objection. I wasn't quite able to understand it.
Relevance.
And Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes.
This is relevant because, as Ms. Perkins will point out, the other person who had a relationship to Mr. Brackman was Blair Rollins, who is an alternate suspect in this case. And as we are the defense counsel, bringing in an alternate suspect is relevant.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Please.
Your Honor, there are many, many people who I'm sure Mr. Brackman knew. And if that logic applies to Blair Rollins, then it should apply to all of them.
Thank you. The court will find it meets 401 relevancy standards and overrule the objection. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, I will repeat my question then. Besides the kids on the mock trial team, do you have any knowledge of any kids at CHS having a relationship with Mr. Brackman?
Yeah, I knew this kid named Blair Rollins, and he had actually a really significant relationship with Mr. Brackman.
As far as you knew, what was this relationship?
Well, Blair Rollins was the son of Mr. Rollins, who was...
Your response to speculation?
Yes, Your Honor. This is not, in fact, speculation because I'm asking Miss Perkins to explain to me, as far as she knew, what the relationship was between Blair Rollins and Mr. Brackman. As Miss Perkins will explain, it was common knowledge at Colorado High School what was going on with Blair Rollins' father. And so, therefore, Miss Perkins isn't speculating because she has personal knowledge of this relationship.
Response?
I stand by my objection.
Go ahead. So I would ask that you just clarify how she knows what she knows, and then you can ask her the question about what she knows.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Miss Perkins, how do you have any knowledge of this relationship between Blair Rollins and Mr. Brackman?
Well, everybody at Colorado High School knew about it. It was talked about because Blair Rollins' dad was actually sentenced for life in jail for murder. So everybody knew about this.
And to that point, what was this relationship?
Oh, yeah. So this relationship was pretty significant because Mr. Brackman was actually Blair Rollins' dad's attorney.
And do you have any other knowledge of this relationship, or is that the extent of it?
Yes, I just knew that he was attorney and just that he was like the attorney that was in the case that sent Blair Rollins' dad to jail, unfortunately.
And was anyone that you were friends with or spent time with ever friends with Blair Rollins?
Yeah, surprisingly, Alex Cifuentes, which is like very, very weird since Blair Rollins has the reputation of being like a total psychopath, or like you could say hitman. And then there's Alex Cifuentes, which is like a total kiss up. So yeah, they had a pretty good relationship and they were best friends actually.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon. You know
Good
Avery Becker.
afternoon. Yeah, me and her were best friends.
You and the defendant were very close.
Yeah, we were super close.
You still are close.
Yes.
You and the defendant are good friends.
Yes, we are. We were best friends.
If the defendant didn't do mock trial, you wouldn't have done it either.
No, I probably wouldn't have. I just would have probably used the time to spend time with my friends.
Your coach was Mr. Brackman.
Yeah, he was Mr. Mackenzie Brackman.
You thought Mr. Brackman was a mediocre coach.
Yes, I did think that he was a mediocre coach and a mediocre lawyer too, because I just thought that he didn't make the best decisions for the team.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
That year at regionals, the defendant, Avery Becker, won many mock trial awards.
Yeah, I was super proud of her. They were great awards, Best Attorney Award and Best Closing Argument.
The defendant, Mr. Brackman, argued often.
Avery argued?
Correct.
Sorry, I didn't hear. Yeah, Avery was pretty good, I guess you could say, arguing.
These arguments could get heated.
Yeah, they got really heated sometimes.
They often boiled over.
Yeah, the arguments were pretty bad, but I just always just sat back and watched, honestly. I never got involved.
And that was because the defendant sometimes arrived at mock trial unprepared.
Yeah, Avery was unprepared.
The defendant sometimes delayed doing their work.
Yeah, she did.
And would sometimes be late to practice.
Yes, she was sometimes late to practice as well.
The defendant would even pull pranks on Mr. Brackman.
Yeah, she would. And they were really funny to just sit back and watch, honestly.
It's fair to say that Mr. Brackman did not like the defendant.
Objection, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Any response, counsel?
Your Honor, the opposing counsel went on for some time about how much Taylor Perkins knew about the relationships involving Mr. Brackman, Avery Becker, and herself. So I think that's a perfectly reasonable question.
Your Honor, may I respond?
May.
In my questioning, I did ask Ms. Perkins some similar questions, but I asked her only to the extent that she knew. And the phrasing of opposing counsel's question, they asked if it was fair to think something about the thoughts of Mr. Brackman or to speculate to some sort of thought that Mr. Brackman was having. And so, if nothing else, I just asked opposing counsel to rephrase their question.
And so I'll sustain as a speculation. You can certainly ask any of the statements they made, which may reveal their thoughts, but not just ask what the thoughts are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. As you said, the defendant and Mr. Brackman argued often.
Yeah, they had some pretty heated arguments.
One argument, Mr. Brackman demoted Avery Becker to the B team.
Yes.
It was the less skilled team.
Yes.
You were upset about this.
Yeah, I was, and I decided to step down to B team for Avery to have my spot, and I was right to do what I did.
Okay, just to clarify, you offered your spot to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
That year, the defendant won several awards at the regional competition.
Yeah, she won pretty good awards.
In a later meeting, Mr. Brackman asserted that the defendant didn't deserve the awards.
Yes. Yeah, he told her that she didn't deserve the awards. I just don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember, yeah, he told her that she didn't deserve them.
The defendant was furious.
Yes, she was.
The defendant stormed out of the room.
Yes, she did.
With a permanent marker in hand.
Yes, she told me that she didn't know it was a permanent marker, but then I later found out that it was permanent.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
And the defendant vandalized Mr. Brackman's car.
Yeah, she wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood of his beloved Porsche.
It was a white Porsche.
I don't remember exactly what color his car was, but I remember it was a 911 Carrera.
Okay, thank you. And the defendant vandalized the Porsche with a permanent marker, is that correct?
Yes, like I previously said.
And the defendant wrote Worst Attorney Award on the hood.
Yes.
So Mr. Brackman kicked the defendant off the team.
Yeah, he kicked her off the team for good.
Yeah, that's understandable. You and the defendant texted everyone on the team to see if the defendant could get back on.
Yes.
Even Alex Cifuentes?
I think Alex Cifuentes, I'm not really sure.
You and the defendant did not like Alex Cifuentes.
Yeah, Alex Cifuentes, I mean, I know Avery was like okay with Alex Cifuentes on the surface and not like good deep down.
So that's a yes.
Sorry, what was your question again?
That was a yes.
Oh no, like the question before that I'm saying yes to?
You and the
Sorry.
defendant did not like Alex Cifuentes.
Oh no, not there. Alex Cifuentes was just not our favorite person.
And yet you both asked Mr. Cifuentes anyway.
I didn't ask. It was just Avery, and I think it was Avery. I'm not sure if she asked.
You found out that Mr. Brackman was still angry at Avery.
No, I after like that he like kicked her off the team, I didn't really find out anything about Mr. Brackman after that.
The Fry Shack was a favorite of your mock trial team, is that correct?
Yeah, the Fry Shack was a spot that we were usually at.
And you were there on March 5th, is that correct?
Yes.
Some members of the mock trial team showed up.
Yeah, some members of the mock trial team showed up, and Alex Cifuentes too.
So once again, Alex Cifuentes was one of those mock trial students?
Yes.
Now, you said earlier in your testimony today that you remember Avery Becker not picking up her phone. Is that the case?
Which time are you talking about? Is it in the morning?
No, I'm talking about at Fry Shack.
At Fry Shack? I'm not sure. I know that she wasn't picking up her phone when we were calling it after she lost the phone, and then in the morning she wasn't picking up her phone either.
Okay. You believe that Avery Becker's phone was like a third kidney to her.
Yeah, that thing was never out of reach, but that night I think she was so mad at Alex Cifuentes, but that she just left it on the table.
So that was a yes.
Yes, it was never out of reach.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief one.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Perkins, you said that, how would you explain Avery's relationship to her phone?
Avery's phone was never out of reach, except it was that night that I'm pretty sure she left it on the table because of how much Alex Cifuentes made her mad.
Yeah, were there ever any exceptions to Avery's phone being like her third kidney?
Yes, not when she was in a normal state of mind. When she was mad that night, she left it on the table.
And so was there a particular state of mind in which Miss Becker would maybe not be as pertinent to check her phone or be on her phone?
Yeah, I think when anybody's like sad or angry, that they just leave their phone isn't the one thing that's on their mind. She was more thinking about how she could get back on the team, and she was also thinking about the whole situation that happened between.
Any response?
Yes, Your Honor. My witness here is just explaining what she had talked about with Miss Becker. As we know, Miss Perkins and Miss Becker were together that entire night, and we know that they had conversations about Avery getting back on the team. So she's not speculating. She's just pulling from conversations that she had with Miss Becker.
Your Honor, may I respond? You may. The witness was directly saying, I think Avery Becker was thinking XYZ. So that is absolutely speculation.
The court will sustain the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, you continue.
Okay. So you did not see, or did you see Avery pick up her phone on the way out of Fry Shack on March 5th, 2020?
No.
And did you feel there was any particular reason for that?
I think it was because of the state of mind that she was in.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No questions.
Your Honor, I know this is a little out of order, but may I briefly recross the witness?
If it stays within the scope of the redirect.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Perkins, do you remember writing a witness statement for this case?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember in your witness statement saying on line 69, quote, I wasn't sure Avery grabbed the phone again? Do you remember
Yeah,
saying?
I wasn't sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the people then?
No, Your Honor.
From the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Very well, thank you. And the defense may call their next witness, please.
And Your Honor, just a warning, it may take just a minute to call our next witness, as we'll again have to transition between attorneys and witnesses.
No problem, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor.
And the defense may call their next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Professor Blake Van Owen to the stand.
Thank you.
Please state your name and spell the last for the record.
Professor Blake Van Owen, VAN space OWEN.
And Professor, what's your line of work?
Right now, I'm a private investigator, and I teach a course on police practices.
Could you tell us a little bit about your experience in your work?
Yeah, I started out as a police officer, then a SRO, and as well as a security guard, and that's where I'm at now.
And do you specialize in any smaller fields?
Yeah, I've gone to multiple conferences, the same as Kyle Kuzak on crime scene reconstruction, a very professional setting. And I have testified as an expert in multiple different states as with cell tower analysis, police investigation, and as well as crime scene reconstruction.
And can you talk a little bit about your experience in education, maybe?
Yeah, I earned my master's degree with police practices and social justice through the Ashford's university program. And through that, for 5 years now, I've been teaching a course at CU Denver about police practices.
All right, I would now ask the court to accept Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, general police investigation tactics, and police practices.
The objection?
No, Your Honor, but may I perform a brief voir dire?
You may.
Professor Van Owen, you have not provided a CV.
Sorry, the mic cut out on your end. What was that?
You have not provided a CV.
Can you reword your question?
You have not provided a curriculum vitae.
I suppose not.
And you say you've been recognized as an expert.
Yes, I have.
But we have no evidence of this.
I suppose not. Accept my word.
We just have to take your word for it.
Yep.
And you only worked with the police for 9 months.
About, yes.
Before you were fired.
No, I quit.
And you consider yourself an expert after 9 months?
No, I consider myself an expert after all the time and experience and education I've acquired throughout the years.
For police practices, you consider yourself an expert after working with the police after 9 months?
And also my degree.
Thank you, Your Honor. Also, may I please object on police procedure for being too broad?
Your response?
Your Honor, as Professor Van Owen has testified today about police procedures, he did have time as a police officer and does teach a class. He taught a police procedures class at the beginning of his career.
All right, so the court will overrule the objection, designate the witness as an expert. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Professor, can you talk to me a little bit about Kyle Kuzak's overall crime scene reconstruction analysis?
I would love to.
All right, let's start with the physical evidence that they found at the scene.
Yeah, the main physical evidence that I found on the scene was, or sorry, not that I found, Kuzak found on the scene was scuff marks by the back door where the intruder supposedly entered through. However, we do not know how old those are, where they came from, or anything like that. There's no solid proof on what those scuff marks are from. I'm sure anybody here in this court hearing went home and they have to have those floor panels, obviously, but they could find scuff marks because even I personally don't, wash my floors.
And can you talk to me a little bit more about the knife that Kuzak found?
Yeah. To start off, the knife Kuzak found was does not match any of the knife brands that Mr. Brackman owned. It was convenient that there was a missing knife in the chef's knife, but that really doesn't support anything. And as well as the fact that that's all Kuzak really had with a knife.
And can you tell me a little more about this bear hug stabbing that Kuzak has as a theory?
Yeah, so to put it simply and to help show the jury, Kuzak's analysis with this bear hug was that the intruder and the victim got into somehow bear hug motion where the intruder was in front and the victim had them in this bear hug, and the intruder somehow got a knife over 2 shoulders. And an average build for a high school student did that. I think that's very sloppy police work that they even thought that was a good idea.
All right, and can we touch on Markowitz's cell tower analysis? I mean, you're an expert in this, so what do you make of it?
I don't think he did a good job with it at all. To put first that cell tower analysis is not an exact science. It's not like a GPS points on a map. It's a wide range through the towers. It gives you an idea. And on top of that, it's Avery Becker's phone that they're tracking, not Avery Becker. So even if...
I'm sorry, Professor, what makes you so sure that Avery didn't have her phone?
I'm so sure because Avery and Taylor both testify to searching for Avery's phone the entire day of the murder. Avery lost their phone the night before the murder even happened.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add? I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, it's totally fine. On top of Markowitz, just in general, or the whole police force on this investigation, there was evidence lost that you, me, and the jury won't be able to see here today.
Can you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah, they lost blood splatter and blood drop photos. Crucial evidence to a murder case, I would say.
Okay. And now let's move to talk about the text messages they accepted from Alex Cifuentes.
They should never have accepted those text messages, or at least they should have waited to get Cifuentes' phone and use the fancy software that we were talking about earlier, Cellbrite, to fully download and have credible sources.
And I'm sorry, what makes you think they should have conducted this type of investigation on Alex?
Well, first off, in Kuzak's witness sheet that I went over, he was another suspect. Two, Alex Cifuentes, they're just trusting this high school student with crucial evidence to a murder case. A student who just thinks the world's like mock trial. This is a real life court. This is a real person that's on trial right now.
All right, and let's talk about the police's other suspects that they investigated.
Yeah, besides the two that we've talked about, there's also Blair Rollins.
And who is Blair Rollins?
As we heard earlier, he was a Colorado high school student.
And why are they important in this case?
Their father, Jonathan Rollins, was a former client of Mackenzie Brackman, the victim, and Mackenzie Brackman lost Jonathan Rollins' case, and he was sent to court for life.
And did you conduct your own investigation on Blair?
Yeah, I did a standard police investigation, used online resources, did everything that I really could to try and locate Blair and get in contact, but I was unsuccessful, which led me to believe that they had fled Colorado. And keep in mind, this was just months. That trial for Jonathan Rollins was just months before the murder of Brackman.
Objection, narrative.
Response.
Your Honor, this witness was just simply explaining what conclusion they came to in their investigation.
Your Honor, can I respond? Your Honor, the witness went into how he thinks that this is months after the investigation and how he thinks that Blair has fled the state, and that's not relevant to who Blair Rollins was. So it was narrative.
So at this point, he's been designated as an expert, and the court will overrule the objection and allow him to testify as to his opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Professor, can you just tell me anything else that we might need to know about Blair and why they're related to this case?
Yeah, just to do it quickly, Blair was at the court hearing of his father. He saw his father fight for his family and for his life, and that can really hurt a high school student to see his family ripped from him, his whole life change in one moment.
Speculation, Your Honor.
Response?
I'm sorry, could you please further explain your objection? I don't understand what the witness was speculating to.
The witness was talking about how Blair Rollins' life was changed by seeing his father taken to prison, and he has no personal knowledge on this.
Your Honor, if I may respond. Professor Van Owen was simply talking about how his suspect is relevant to this case and the conclusions that they came to throughout their investigation and how their investigation furthered their knowledge about how this is a real life suspect.
Objection with respect to how Rollins may have felt about the guilty verdict against his father. And so I'll sustain that portion of the testimony, and you may continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Professor, is there anything about the height and build of Blair Rollins that might be relevant?
Yeah, Blair Rollins is about the same height and build as Avery Becker, which just more shows why they should have been more of a lead suspect for the prosecution's case.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Yes, Your Honor. You used to be a police officer
That is correct.
for the Aurora Police Department.
Yes,
You injured a young woman,
I did, unfortunately.
a young woman of color,
Yep.
during an arrest.
Yes,
And after that, you left the police department.
I did.
And after that incident, you have only testified for the defense.
I mean, why would the prosecution pay for a private investigator when they have their own people and resources for free? Doesn't make sense.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Which is nearly always against the police.
Mm-hmm.
And you consider yourself a check on the power of the police?
Yeah, I mean, some people in the world just believe that the police are always right, and as we can see in this case today, that's not true.
And as you stated previously, you testify for the defense because it is the only side that pays?
I mean, no, that's not what I said.
You get paid $6,000 to $7,000 per case?
I haven't really been paying attention to the money, but I think so, yeah.
About the case at hand, you reviewed the police reports.
Yeah.
And the crime scene reconstruction report.
Yep.
You looked at the cell tower reports.
Yes, sir.
And the exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
But you yourself only conducted a partial investigation.
To put it in harsh words, yeah, but I didn't need to conduct a full one.
Though you disagree with the police.
Yes.
Specific-
There's a couple of things we agree on, but for the most part, yes.
Specifically, Kyle Kuzak,
Yes.
who conducted a full investigation.
Of the crime scene, even though it didn't really make sense, but yes, he did.
And he has 19 years of experience.
Is that where it's at now? Yeah.
Let's take a look at your observations. You agree Avery's cell phone was communicating with the cell towers near Mr. Brackman's home?
Could you rephrase or re-ask your question? Sorry, I didn't fully understand it.
You agree that Avery's cell phone was communicating with the cell towers near Mr. Brackman's home?
No.
You don't believe that Avery Becker's phone was communicating with the cell towers near Mr. Brackman's home at the time of the crime?
What I truly believe is that, sure, maybe the cell towers got pinged off of Avery's phone near there, or maybe Avery's phone was somewhere else. Because, like I was saying earlier, cell towers are not an exact science. Cell phone towers don't. It's not always, the phone doesn't always communicate to the closest tower. Because if that tower is busy, it'll go to a different tower. So unless Markowitz got a more detailed report and all of that, yeah.
But you know it was connecting to the cell tower near Mr. Brackman's home.
I suppose it was.
And you say it would have been better to maintain cell tower records from the day before in order to confirm what Avery Becker claims?
There's a lot they could have done that was better, and that was one of them.
But you didn't obtain these records.
No.
You claim that the police should have investigated more suspects.
Yeah, or looked into the actual suspects.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
But you did not take the time to investigate anybody else.
No, I did.
You also claim that screenshots are not a reliable piece of evidence.
They are not reliable, no.
And that it is much better to perform a thorough search of the actual phone.
I think that's what I wrote in my affidavit. Yeah.
And you claim that the police were lazy?
That's what I've been saying.
Because
they rush things, you know?
Because they did not obtain Alex Cifuentes' phone.
They could have easily have done more.
But you never.
And they did less.
But you never obtained the phone either.
I wasn't able to, no.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief one. Professor, can you highlight once again what your job here today is alone?
Yeah, my job here today is just to look at the prosecution's case, what they think happened, and all of that. It's not my job to figure out who the real suspect is or to really do their job.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
And I believe we'll have the defense third witness, please. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. We were just getting things sanitized, but I
Okay,
can
wonderful.
hear you.
And you may call your next witness, please.
Your Honor, the defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
Thank you.
Please state your name, spelling your last for the record.
My name is Avery Becker, Becker.
Miss Becker, are you currently in high school?
No, I graduated Colorado High School last year.
Were you in any extracurriculars during your time there?
Yeah, I was in mock trial. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It was the best part of my life. I enjoyed it so much. I had my best friend Taylor on there. You know, I had a rocky relationship with our coach, but I still really appreciate it and I miss him. You know, it's just a really good experience, pretty much.
Were you good at mock trial?
Yeah, I was great. It was the one thing that I really felt was my thing, you know.
You talked a little bit about some of your teammates. You mentioned Taylor. Are there any other teammates?
Yeah, there was someone, Alex Cifuentes, who testified earlier, and she was on the team with us.
Did you hear Alex's testimony?
Yeah, you know, it was a lie, a big lie. We weren't close, and Alex would talk behind my back. We weren't friends, and it's really upsetting to have her lie about that now.
You talked a little bit about your coach and your relationship. Why was it rocky?
Coach Brackman would constantly criticize me, telling me that I didn't put in enough work and that I wasn't there for the team, things of that manner. And I disagreed. I thought I put in enough work. I thought I shone on the team, and I didn't need to put in any more work. I thought I was doing great, but he never seemed to agree.
Did you ever win any awards that reflected your accountability with the team?
Yeah, when we went to regionals, I won the best attorney award and best closing argument.
Did Mr. Brackman congratulate you?
No. He humiliated me. No one seemed to really appreciate that award. No surprise, no one ever appreciates anything I do, but he tore me to pieces, telling me that I didn't deserve it and that I didn't put in the work, and I did. That was my award, and he didn't seem to think so. So,
Miss Becker, did you do anything after that argument?
Yeah, I made a big mistake. I took what I thought I genuinely thought was a permanent marker. An expo marker. It turned out to be a permanent marker, and wrote worst attorney award on his car.
How did you feel after you did that?
Mortified. I had what I thought was the expo marker in my hand, ready to write on the whiteboard before practice, and I just assumed it was an expo marker, and I was confident it would wipe off, and when it didn't, I was just ashamed at my mistake. I regretted it so much.
Objection narrative.
Your response, counsel?
Your Honor, this isn't narrative. Again, my client, Miss Becker, is explaining how she felt after this event, and she's still elaborating on how she felt and still giving new information.
Your Honor, may I respond? Opposing counsel did indeed ask Ms. Becker how she felt after this vandalism incident. However, Ms. Becker responded by explaining why she had a permanent marker in her hand instead of an expo marker.
Your Honor, may I respond? My client, Miss Becker, was explaining also how she felt about the situation, and she was adding in the point of the permanent marker to fully explain why she felt that way and her true feelings of the situation.
Technically, I will sustain the objection and give you the opportunity to re-ask the question.
Yes, we're actually going to move on. Miss Becker, where were you on March 6th?
I was with my best friend, Taylor Perkins, the whole day.
Were you ever not with Taylor?
No. I went to Taylor's that morning, spent the whole day with her.
And we're going to move a little bit back to your relationship with your coach. Although you guys got in arguments, did you ever wish to hurt Mr. Brackman?
No. I would never hurt Mr. Brackman. I regret so much some of the things I said and did, and it tears me up every day that I never got to apologize to him, and I would never want anything bad to happen. The fact that it did eats me alive every waking moment.
Were any of your disagreements big enough to make you want to hurt him?
Objection
No.
answered.
Your Honor, I will rephrase my question. Even though Mr. Brackman embarrassed you in front of your teammates, did that ever make you want to hurt him?
No. He rightfully embarrassed me. I was full of myself at times, and
Again.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yes, you're welcome to.
Again, my client, Miss Becker, is explaining. She said, no, she would never do that. And now she's explaining why to her answer. And she never previously stated that the embarrassment was rightfully so.
Your Honor, may I respond? The question that opposing counsel asked did not elicit this response, even if the witness did provide that response.
Overrule the objection. Counsel, continue. Thank you.
Even though Mr. Brackman embarrassed you in front of all your teammates, did that ever make you want to hurt him?
Absolutely not. I would never, ever hurt Mr. Brackman. All I want is to apologize, and I wish he was back.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Becker, you were on the mock trial team for 4 years.
That I was.
And Mr. Brackman was your coach.
He was.
There were 2 groups on your mock trial team.
There were.
The A team and the B team.
That's right.
The A team was more talented than the B team.
I guess you could put it that way.
So of course you were on the A team.
Yeah, I worked really hard at mock trial, and so I was.
Of course. But Mr. Brackman didn't appreciate you.
Not always, no.
He told you you were lazy.
Yeah, he did.
And that your work ethic wasn't good enough.
Yeah, he was always saying stuff along those lines.
However, you were the best attorney on your team.
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty skilled.
And you could come up with a brilliant cross-examination.
I don't know, it's just in my blood.
And your closing arguments had the judges wrapped around your finger.
They often enjoyed them, yeah.
But Mr. Brackman didn't care.
No, Mr. Brackman would have preferred I do things his way.
All he could do was criticize you.
Yeah, he was tough on me.
And then he demoted you.
He did.
From the A team to the B team.
That's right.
And this infuriated you.
I was upset. I thought I belonged on the A team.
You were so angry with Mr. Brackman that you defaced his car.
Yeah, I did. It was a terrible mistake.
And then, even though you were the best attorney on your team, he kicked you off.
Yeah, he did.
You spoke to your mother about this situation.
Yeah, Mom was really the only one I could talk to.
And you were angry.
I was that night. I
You
was
were
a little
so
upset.
You were so angry that you told your mother you would get back at him if it was the last thing you did.
Yeah, I wanted to apologize. I wanted to get back on the team.
But you did tell your mother that you would get back at Mr. Brackman if it was the last thing you did.
Yeah, I worded it strangely, but yes.
Moving on to your relationship with Taylor Perkins. You are best friends with Taylor Perkins.
Yeah, I guess.
You've been best friends for some time.
Yeah, I've known Taylor a while.
You even joined mock trial together.
Yeah, it was fun to do together.
And you joined in order to spend more time with them.
Yeah, Taylor was like my only friend, so.
But Miss Perkins was never as good at mock trial as you were.
I mean, she was pretty skilled. I guess you could say that I was a little better.
And she never enjoyed it as much.
No, it wasn't as much of Taylor's thing.
So when you were demoted to the B team, of course she dropped out for you.
Yeah, she didn't think it was a sacrifice, really. So she wanted me to be back on the team. She knew how much it meant.
She put aside her own hard work for you.
Yeah, I mean, hard work, nah, it wasn't that big of a commitment for her.
And then you went to the Fry Shack.
Yep, we went there a lot. Probably not the best place, but yeah.
You went with Taylor Perkins.
I did.
Where you lost your phone.
Yep.
You lost
That's
your
right.
phone on the evening of March 5th.
Yeah, I did.
And you didn't notice it was missing until the morning of March 6th.
No, when things upset me, I get in my head and I just didn't notice it was gone. I don't really pay attention
And
to things
so
like
you
that.
went to search for it.
Yep.
Taylor Perkins.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor wanted to help me find it, yeah.
And you spent the entire day searching for your phone.
We did.
So there is no record of your attendance at school on March 6th of 2020.
Nope, because we were at the mall in the Fry Shack.
Of course. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counsel. Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Can I ask for a time check first?
Please.
You have 46 seconds for redirect.
Thank you. Miss Becker, how do you feel after the loss of your coach, Mr. Brackman?
Your Honor, objection. This was not within the scope of cross-examination.
Response, counsel.
There was a lot of talk about the relationship with her and Mr. Brackman, and I was making some clarifying questions about their relationship.
Over the objection. She may respond. She may answer.
Miss Becker, how do you feel after the loss of your coach, Mackenzie Brackman?
I really can't even begin to describe it. I wake up every morning and I have so many things I wanted to say to him. Every day I think about them and how I'll never get that chance because he's just gone. There's nothing I can do about it. And now I'm being accused for his murder when I would never, ever lay a finger on Mr. Brackman because I was an egotistical little snob on his team and he didn't deserve my attitude. And,
That's time.
and now I'm being
Sorry.
accused.
At this point, I believe we will have closing arguments.
Thank you, Your Honor.
People, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I have a brief moment?
You may.
All right. No accountability. That is what this case revolves around. Accountability or the lack thereof. Many people have tried to hold Avery Becker accountable. All have failed. And that ends today. This case revolves around two main facts. First, that somebody broke into, struggled with, and finally stabbed Mr. Brackman. And second, that person was Avery Becker. We, the prosecution, have proven both of these beyond a reasonable doubt. And yet the defense would have you believe a different story. They would have you believe Detective Blake Van Owen, who not once walked the crime scene. Detective Blake Van Owen, who took the clear and legitimate work of Detective Jordan Markowitz and Detective Kyle Kuzak, analyzed it, and came up with a different conclusion. Detective Blake Van Owen, who's paid $7,000 to disagree with our prosecution case. The defense would have you believe Taylor Perkins. Taylor Perkins, who was like a sidekick to Avery Becker, who dropped out of the mock trial team for her friend Avery, who took the fall for Avery once and would do it again. The defense would have you believe Avery Becker herself. Avery Becker, who claims to have lost her phone on March 5th. The defense would have you believe that not one time between Avery Becker being at the Fry Shack and meeting Taylor Perkins the night did Avery Becker take their hand, reach down to their pocket, and feel that her phone wasn't there. Do not believe them. Believe instead Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak, who have almost 30 years of combined experience in crime scene investigation and police procedure, who clearly and concisely walked the crime scene, who meticulously organized the evidence in a way that was clear and understandable for the jury. Believe Alex Cifuentes. Alex Cifuentes, who was on the front lines of the war that was waging between Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman, who saw it all, who saw every single day that Avery Becker was unprepared, who saw every single day that Avery Becker came late, who saw all the disrespect that Avery Becker showed to her coach. To quote Avery Becker herself, "If Brackman thinks he was upset about what I did to his car, wait till he sees what I do to his house." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is clear. Avery Becker went to Mr. Brackman's house on March 6th with the intent to vandalize, broke in, and struggled with Mr. Brackman, finally stabbed him. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Brackman, he demanded respect from his students. He demanded that his students put in hard work and effort, just like any good mock trial coach would. And he got none. Avery Becker didn't respect Mr. Brackman, never put in the work, and was always late. Avery Becker was never held accountable. Mr. Brackman tried, and Mr. Brackman failed. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, now it is your turn to hold Avery Becker accountable. Please find Avery Becker guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Closing arguments from the defense, please.
Before I present my closing argument, I would just like to confirm that timers are ready.
Yes.
The less I see, the more I know. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have heard the case of the people of the state of Colorado versus Miss Avery Becker, and you have been called to determine whether the defendant in this case, Miss Avery Becker, is in fact responsible for the crimes that she has been charged with. Today, we saw 6 witnesses take the stand, the first 3 of these on behalf of the prosecution. First, we saw Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak take the stand. The detective, along with Ms. Markowitz, laid out investigations and stories backed solely by falsified and partial evidence. And more than that, explained to us how the prosecution lost evidence in this case, meaning that there are key, crucial photos of not only blood splatter, but blood drops at the crime scene that you will not have the opportunity to see here today. This means that there was, in fact, no accountability for the police work done on this case, either for Mr. Markowitz or Mr. Kuzak in this case. The less evidence I see presented by the prosecution, the more I know that the prosecution has failed to present you with their entire case today. We also saw Alex Cifuentes take the stand today. Alex Cifuentes, who made loose, unsupported claims in a desperate attempt to authenticate a text conversation between him and my client, Miss Becker. But we were never able to truly authenticate these text conversations because once again, there was no accountability for the prosecution's expert witnesses. No attempt was made by the prosecution's expert witnesses to ever gain access to Ms. Cifuentes' phone itself. We also saw Alex Cifuentes make claims about a supposed best friend relationship with my client, Ms. Becker. But the less I see of Alex Cifuentes testifying on behalf of his best friend, Ms. Becker, today, the more questions I have not only about their relationship, but about the story that Ms. Cifuentes has presented us with here today. We also saw 3 witnesses take the stand on behalf of the defense. We saw both Miss Taylor Perkins and Miss Avery Becker take the stand and provide us with simple, believable alibis, and the less discrepancies I see between their alibis and their testimonies here today in court, the more I know about the validity of their alibis from March 6, 2020. We also saw Blake Van Owen take the stand on behalf of the prosecution today. Blake Van Owen, who laid out his thought-out, well-done investigation into this case, as well as his identification of another suspect, Blair Rollins, that the prosecution's own expert witnesses, Detective Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak, failed to fully investigate. The less I see of witnesses being presented by the prosecution, the more I know that a lazy and sloppy job was done by the prosecution in their investigations and in seeking justice for Mr. Brackman here today. Ladies and gentlemen, I now ask you to think of yourself as you were in high school and think of someone that you may have clashed with at this age, whether it was your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your coach. But think of how despite it all, you ended up all right. You ended up here. But what if you hadn't? What if something terrible had happened to that person that you just imagined and you had been blamed for it? What if you had been subpoenaed to court to plead to complete strangers that you were not the one responsible? You would want them to see you for the bright, young student that you were. And you would want them to hear you, especially as they made their final decision in your case. Ladies and gentlemen, I now direct your attention to jury instructions 7, 8, and 9, all of which outline all of the elements that the prosecution must prove in this case in order to convict Ms. Becker as guilty today. I'll remind you that the prosecution has a burden of proof that they must meet today to not only prove all of these elements, but if they don't prove even one of these elements, that Ms. Becker must be found not guilty on all accounts. As we can see laid out in these elements, the prosecution has not only failed to prove that the criminal in this case did the crimes that have been charged with intent to commit therein the crime of criminal mischief against another person or property, but that they have failed to prove that the defendant was in fact responsible for any of these crimes. The less I see of the prosecution's ability to prove all of these elements, the more I know that they have not met their burden of proof today. The less I see of their ability to prove their burden of proof today, the more I know that Ms. Becker must be found not guilty on all accounts. But more than anything, ladies and gentlemen, the less I see, the more I know that there is no principled person within this courtroom
That's
who can ever
time.
see Ms. Becker as anything but not guilty today. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Any rebuttal closing from the people?
May I ask how much time I have left?
Scorekeepers?
You have 1 minute and 19 seconds left.
What? The less I see, the more I know. That theme is just about as confusing as the defense's case. The less I see, the more I know. Perhaps that was the impression that Detective Blake Van Owen was operating under. The less he saw of the crime scene, the more he knew. The less he saw of Detective Jordan Markowitz's evidence, the more he knew. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Mr. Brackman was the last one to see Avery Becker. He was the last one to see, Avery Becker was the last one to see him alive. And yet he knew he was fighting for his life. As he finally closed his eyes, he knew Avery Becker was his murderer. But the less he saw, the more he knew. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. And let's take a few moments for the scorekeepers and the jury to complete their forms. While they're doing that, I guess just a couple of comments and observations. What a pleasure it really was all day today. Just really wonderful demonstration of the rules of evidence. The witnesses, really honestly, a couple times I caught myself watching this and I was thinking I was actually presiding over a real trial, that the witnesses were that believable. And I do like, for both sides, the way you sort of weave the theme from the beginning through the openings, including some of the statements from the witnesses, into the closing arguments. Just very impressive stuff. So I want to say congratulations to everyone for a job very well done. I'll turn to any of the other